I like warm weather.
I know, we can't beat it, can ya?
It's gonna be, I never know if I'm gonna be cold.
I,
I call this meeting of the Richland County Board to order. Main purpose of our meeting tonight, we have a very short agenda. We'll be talking about discussion and possible actions, revisions to the Richland County Rules of the Board and the Richland County Board Committee structure. Mr. Kalish, would you please take the roll and then lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Carroll. Here. Miller. Brewer.
Here.
Steve.
Here.
McKee.
Here.
Renish. Sure. Luck. Manning. Here. Gotcho. Glassburner.
Here.
Gentis.
Here.
Dirk.
Here.
Cosgrove.
Here.
Frank.
Here.
Severson.
Present.
Williamson.
Here.
Bowie.
Here.
Fleming. Voice.
Here.
McGuire. 15 to 21 there for
Okay, thank you. And the pledge.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As I said, we have a short agenda, 7 points, looking for a motion to approve the agenda. Mr. Williamson, seconded by Mr. Frank. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? We have an agenda. Public comment. Do we have anyone here for public comment? Okay, we'll move into item number 5, discussion. And with us tonight is.
he's up there.
He's up here, okay. And he'll be Andy Phillips of the WCA and the, what is the name of his? Atolis law firm, Andy, sorry. Atolis law firm. And Andy has been working with us on examining our rules of the board, our committee structure, comparing it to state statutes, comparing it to other counties, comparing it to his base of knowledge, which is extensive. And I think I'm going to ask Andy to take over this discussion at this time. Mr. Phillips?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I wish I could say you're the only one who's messed up the name of my law firm, but that's okay. I'm not going to hold it against you. Great to see everybody again on such a beautiful spring evening. I believe that everybody received electronically the latest version of both the board rules and then the Appendix A document, which is the proposed committee structure. I thought we could start with the board rules because I think that there are just a couple of points needing further discussion. And once we resolve the board rules, then we can move on to the committee structure. Does that sound okay to the board and to you, Mr. Chair?
Sounds great to me. Anyone else? No? Yes, proceed.
Okay, so looking at the board rules, the edits that are contained on the board rules are in red line fashion. And again, I tried to capture what it is that the board had given in terms of, I guess, consensus discussion on changes that the board would like to see. And so if we go down to...
Mr. Phillips, should we be following you in the handout that was given to us?
Yeah, I was just going to point you to the first section where I thought that there was a change that I thought needed further discussion. And I think that that's going to get down to section 2.05 as to how the committees are populated. And my section 2.05 is on page 6 on my document. I believe it's right around that same place in yours. You'll see that I have a comment there because originally you might recall that I had the board chair making committee appointments subject to board confirmation. And I think that I heard from a lot of board members that they'd rather see a process where we have a committee on committees populating the committees. And so you'll see in the revisions to section 2.05 that we have a committee on committees, which convenes within 1 week following the biennial organizational meeting, and that committee on committees appoints members to the various committees based upon interest forms, tenure, and previous service on standing committees. The committee on committees is 7 members, your board chair, your board vice chair, and then 5 at-large supervisors that are appointed by the county board at the organizational meeting. And so my question for the board this evening is, do you like the process that I've got in 2.05 now as revised? Do you want to consider going back to board chair appointment of committees? I guess, what is the board's pleasure on 2.05?
And I'm looking at it and I'm wondering, how do we squeeze that meeting in between organizational and then the next board? So somebody help me with that.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir, Mr. Steve.
I presume that these rules will be effective, starting with the next session.
That's the idea, yes.
I call for a motion to recommend approval to the board for section 205.
Yes.
Am I correct, Mr. Phillips?
I guess, Mr. Steve, for purposes of keeping things in order, what I would ask you to do is, once Andy goes through this, then I'll entertain a motion to approve. Once it's then before the body, then I will entertain motions for amendment.
So you're not making any recommendations today?
Oh, yes, but not right at this moment.
You're not going to take them one at a time, okay?
Yeah,
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Phillips, yes, Ms. Glassman.
we meet the third Tuesday in April, correct?
Mhm.
So there's 2 more Tuesdays in April. We typically, correct me if I'm wrong, don't have any committee meetings in those last 2 weeks. Is there a reason why we couldn't meet on one of those Tuesday evenings, a special board meeting?
Before the organizational meeting?
You mean the organizational meeting would be the third Tuesday, correct?
Correct.
So it would be after the organizational meeting.
Well, the committee on committees would be making population recommendations at the organizational meeting?
No, they would get appointed to a committee on committees on that organizational meeting.
Okay.
They would need to meet then before we have a special board meeting to then populate the committees. That would get us done before May when the committees need to meet.
It says 1 week following the organizational
Yeah, I
committee.
see that.
Yeah, so it is stipulated.
And
Yeah.
so
So it is stipulated the next Tuesday.
It says within 1 week.
Within
Yeah.
one
week.
Yeah,
Theoretically, they can meet that same night.
what
yes.
the language says now.
Wait, you're saying committee on committees or the full board?
The committee on committees were
Right.
properly noticed.
Right, okay.
Mr. Chairman.
And Mr. Steve, go ahead.
Sorry, trying to clarify my hearing. I think I understood that at our first meeting after electing a chair and vice chair, that then we would elect a committee on committees. Is that correct?
Well, yes,
Yes.
at the same meeting. If we go with this,
At that same
it's
meeting.
written, maybe we don't have to amend, maybe this board. Mr. Carroll,
That mechanism here, this committee of committees, they're saying elect. I don't know exactly whether that's what we'll do or how we would do that.
We did it by ballot.
we could take nominations from the floor.
Stated in Mr. Chair, it is stated in.
It is stated in.
I just think it should be spelled out in.
It just says it.
The board shall either confirm or reject any nominations for each standing committee.
That's not talking about the committee on committees, though,
Yes,
Mr. Chair.
I'm looking at that.
It just, in my,
It just
what
says.
I'm reading, it says appointment.
7 members
So in section
appointed by
201,
the county board.
sub A, sub 4, that is where the 5 members of 5 at-large members.
What page?
Page 3, about a quarter of the way down, it's underlined. It says appoint the 5 at-large members of the committee on committees.
Page 3.
The board chair and vice chair are automatic members.
So what, Mr. Chair? What does appoint mean? Isn't it to be elect rather than appoint?
Well, there is a difference between appoint and elect. Appoint the 5 at-large members of the committee and committees. Would you rather see word elect there, possibly? So
That's all will happen.
that's how it would happen. So let's hold that as a possible amendment then. Hang on to that one.
Mr. Chair, if I might, just briefly, just remember that the election, you can elect, appoint, they mean basically the same thing, or at least the intent with the language is basically the same. We cannot do that by secret ballot. And so it would be based upon nominations from the floor, with the county board then voting on each of the nominees until we have 5 seats filled. If you want to define the process, we can certainly do that.
I'm happy with it like this. Richard?
I would rather see the word elect.
Yeah, so
That means what?
we'll hold it as then an amendment to this document, if we will. Well, remember when Ben used to stand up there with a blackboard and took for?
Is that the most highly pleased with the paper?
Patience.
I don't want to get into that. If we do.
We can't do it by secret ballots.
It won't be the same.
But I think we can somehow bumble our way through elect and get it done.
So I'm newer on the board. So then what does that look like if it's not secret ballot? You nominate, there's a second to the nomination, and then what? Is that going to be just by
Then if we get more than 5
roll
nominations,
call vote, or how do we count votes, so to speak?
we could take a show of hands, Mr. Rennie.
The way I've seen it done, you can do it in one pass. If you have, obviously, if you only have 5 nominated, it's a done deal, but if you have 7, you just put all 7 names on a piece of paper and you hand it to everybody and they write down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They rate them 1 to 7. Highest number gets it. You know, the low number's out. You can do it in 1 round.
That sounds like a good way to do it.
So we can't elect by secret ballot, but how would,
So we used to have names on the pieces of paper that said that, and then you would keep that, so if anybody wanted to examine, they would say, hey, Gary Severson voted 1, 2, and 3.
Mr. Chair.
That's how we always did it in the past,
Mr. C,
with our names right on it.
yes, you do.
Mr. Chairman, I recall the methodology in the past. We nominated by ballot people from the floor. And then the names were placed on the board with the number of votes for each. And anyone who had 11 or more votes was automatically on the committee. Second round, the bottom 2 were eliminated in the second round, and a second round of ballots was done. You recall that?
Yes.
And the corporation council stored them on the board. Sometimes it took 2 or 3 ballots, passed out ballots to the board members, and that's the way we did it.
Yes, I do recall that. So I think we could find a way. I think we don't have to specify, you get a blackboard and ask but elect, I believe, will cover it.
That's the most democratic way.
Mr.
Ingrid?
Chair, I don't mean to be taking up a lot of time here, but I just feel like nailing down the way we're going to do it now is going to save us a lot of time at that organizational meeting, and also for whoever's.
Well, then
coming-
give us a
Well,
way, step by step, do it.
some suggestions, because I'm assuming it's the county clerk that's going to be counting. Who counts these votes? Corporation council, county clerk?
Corp council is.
Mr. Chair, if I-
Yes.
Andy, could you offer
Yes.
us some guidance on best practices on how to go through this process, please?
With the organizational meeting, so when we're going to elect the committee on committees, I suggest we just add language indicating that the election shall occur by ballot, with the 5 members receiving the most votes on the ballot being elected.
That's what I said.
And so,
That-
Mr. Chair, may I? To clarify then, each board member would receive a ballot that contains their name, who is voting, with the list of the others, and then we would tally the vote that way. So it would not be a secret ballot. We'd be able to identify then who voted and how they voted.
Correct.
Sounds great.
Is that what we're looking for?
I
Okay,
think so. Linda?
I like that, but you have to, they won't be on that ballot because we won't know until ahead who's nominated.
Right, right. But I mean, once we collect them, I guess is what I was referencing.
Yeah.
So we could,
Yeah.
no.
Okay, we got a lot more to cover. Mr. Phillips?
Okay, going down then after 2.05, and if there is an area that you would like to address further, please let me know. But the next item that I have as warranting further discussion is all the way down in section 4.03, subsection A on page 16 of my document, relating to remote attendance at meetings. There was a robust discussion on this topic last time we got together. So, from the perspective of the board, how do we want to deal with board members attending both county board meetings remotely and committee meetings remotely?
Was that a question, sir?
It was. I guess I'm looking for direction from the board, again, on consensus, where the way I've revised it now is that the board member will make every attempt to attend county board and committee meetings in person unless the board chair, in his or her discretion, or the committee chair, in his or her discretion, allows a board member to attend remotely. Is that sufficient?
Mr. Carroll?
Fine with the wording, except it's silent about if someone is using a telephone. Right now, it talks about having to leave a camera on, but if someone calls in, that would not work.
I think that's a good point. I can certainly say keep the camera on for the entirety of the attendance if attending by video.
Mr. Chair?
Yes,
I
Ms. Jennings?
only once had to be at a distance, and that was when I went up north, and I couldn't get the internet to work, so I did phone in, and it was an important meeting. So I do think it's important that at times that the chair or the county board chair allows for phoning in. And
And
so it wouldn't be with a camera.
I think
Always.
Andy's wording was if you're on the telephone.
Well, he didn't say telephone.
He's gonna add that.
Oh, he's gonna add that.
Okay.
Mr. McKee?
What?
I thought this was decided at the last meeting, we would allow two.
We are. That's what's on here.
Yeah, but it has to be approved.
Oh,
He's clearing up the wording.
This wording is with the way.
I just mentioned it. It says it has to be approved. Well, a lot of times if, and I don't know if they're approved or not, but in some of the committee meetings, if someone doesn't come in from online, we don't have a forum.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
just to clarify though, this is only speaking of the county board. So if we wanted that to be for standing committees, we would need to clarify that.
Yeah, but this says
all
committee
committee
meetings in
meetings.
person.
It does.
It's both.
Yeah, it is
I
committee
thought we
meeting.
talked about at our rules and resolution that this was specifically for the county board.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
That's what I was going to bring up. So Andy, at the rules meeting, there was significant discussion on requiring the remote attendance piece to only apply for county board meetings and that there would be a limitation of some number, 4 or 5 or 6. I heard several different numbers thrown around, but the number of allowable virtual attendance at county board meeting only is what the committee discussed at that time. Am I getting that right for the members of the committee?
Yes, then that allowed for whatever at a standing committee level, it was not putting restrictions on the amount of times that somebody could attend remotely.
And
So-
I guess the only point I make is, what difference does it make? Whether it's online or you're in person? That would be my only question. I'm on, I don't know, 20 meetings a week. So, to me, you want to get involvement, this is a good way to not get involvement in your meeting, to me, if we take away the,
Yes.
Mr. Cooey, so the discussion that was had, at the finance meeting was, there is a potential then for someone to be elected to the county board and never physically show up to a single meeting. And there's different feelings amongst board members as to whether or not that is acceptable if you are elected to sit on a board and not be present physically for said board meetings ever. And I think that was really the crux of some of that discussion. Again, this is your meeting, these are your rules. You all do as you see fit, but that was the discussion.
Barbara Boyce. Barbara Boyce has the floor.
In this day and age, in most companies, meetings are held totally remotely for everybody. So I think for us to be saying that some young person comes on who works full-time and takes their time out of their day to come to a meeting remotely, and they're doing it every meeting, unless they're doing something wrong, or unless they're showing that they're not paying any attention or not doing anything or not doing their job. We have things in here to say, if they're not doing their job, we can get rid of them. So I don't see what the problem is.
Mr. Chair, if I could just briefly.
Go ahead, Mr. Miller.
Number one, in the counties that I have seen across the state, many are going back to insisting on in-person meetings. That's the policy decision that they're making within their board rules because they feel it's more effective governance in person and it's more transparent to the public. That's number one. Number two, I just want to make sure that we all understand what it means to get rid of, so to speak, an elected supervisor. It requires a 2/3 vote for cause shown based upon written verified charges following a due process hearing. That's required by statute. So it's not as simple as saying you violated the board rules, therefore you forfeited your seat. We can't do that. And so I offer that simply as just additional information for the board.
Mr. C.
Yes, I recall, I think as candidates said that we talked about up to 6 meetings. You could have up to 6 remote meetings.
County board.
And I think it was, you had to be visible, with the exception of those who couldn't get out visibly. I think that was our general agreement that we would allow for the 6 remote meetings. And any exceptions beyond that would be at the discretion of the chair or at the excuse of the chair.
I think that's right now.
Sure.
Mr. Rank.
Thank you. So my understanding of that meeting was the committee meetings, you could have as many video meetings as you wanted to. Come in at all the video meetings you wanted to. That was my understanding. I was actually on video at that meeting because of something that came up. So all the committee meetings, as many videos as you want. County board meetings, our discussion was no more than 6. So we have a minimum of 11 county board meetings. We always skip 1 month. Obviously, we're going to have more than that probably with things going on. So, and if it required more than 6, something happened, then you just get the approval of the county board. That was my understanding. I think that was a good plan. I like that.
May I say one more thing?
Yes, ma'am.
I agree with what you're saying, but this is our 6th board meeting and it's only March. So if somebody came here remotely for 6 meetings, they now have a problem.
Well, our year starts in year.
And we could stipulate regularly scheduled board meetings, so that would then not include special meetings as such, because many of our meetings this year thus far have been special meetings. So there is language we could insert to clarify that specific piece.
So we're making this up on the fly, but do we have a scribe who's inserting this language? Andy?
If I hear what the board is suggesting, there's consensus that we allow up to 6 instances of remote attendance at the regularly scheduled board meetings in a year, and that we have no such limitation on committee meetings. And if somebody wants to exceed 6, they need the board chair's permission. Do I have that right?
Would you say board chair or committee chair?
Well, the committee, if there's no limitation on the committees.
It's only
I
the
don't-
board.
Oh, yeah, okay, board chair, or that.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Chair, there was a statement by Melissa and others that at those remote meetings that the attendee be required to be visible on screen.
Yeah,
That's
in there.
that's in there. They have the camera on.
Right, and it's in there, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Linda.
Oh, I wasn't gonna talk about that. We changed that you also could call in. Okay, so it also says in here about closed session. And I understand the reason we're worried about online with closed session that somebody else might be in the room.
Right.
I think it should be the honor of the board member to make sure no one is in there, because to be honest, if it's a huge, important meeting and you are in the hospital or you're sick or something, and it's your committee or your board, I think this is really a very touchy situation. And I think you have to respect the board members themselves. If you don't trust them, I don't know. I just feel that's a sticky issue.
Anyone else on this topic?
We already agreed last meeting that we would not allow closed sessions. That was a group, but we agreed on that, so
That was a consensus agreement, not a vote.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're discussing tonight.
that's already.
Mr. Turk?
It wasn't an issue of trusting the board member. It's opening us up to too much liability. We have no control over what's going on in the background there. So that's why it is recommended by very sound legal advice that we do it that way.
Mr. Chair,
I-
to clarify on the
May I
separate
add
topic,
a point?
Well, after Ingrid.
just,
Ingrid has the point.
I'm just clarifying. So right now it currently says that if you're going to attend remotely at a county board meeting, that you need to have the county board chair's approval. If we're saying that you can miss up to 6 meetings, I mean, not miss, attend remotely 6 meetings per year, and beyond that need the chair's approval, does that mean then for those first 6, you do not need approval?
Right.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Just clarifying that.
Proceed.
Yes. I can see where there may be a discretionary exception made by the chair on this issue of whether you're can participate in a closed session. And that would be the case, perhaps you have a board member who, because of emergency, cannot attend, maybe has someone that they have to attend to at home who is very ill. And after discussion with you, and you determine that they are essentially going to be alone and will preserve the confidentiality of the conversation. Perhaps the chair could allow, in certain unusual circumstances, participation in a closed session.
Mr. Ving.
Thank you. So I will say I disagree with taking people that are remotely into or taking them out of the closed session. I am opposed to that. However, I understand the liability. I understand the technology risks that go along with that. So I agree with this. Even though it's a lot of special meetings that go on, I understand that would be important, but for the liability and the safety of the county and protection, I would agree with this.
Mr. Chair, if I could just briefly, Mr. Chair. My concern, my only concern as it relates to closed session is if we lose quorum as a result of excusing one of the board members attending remotely or all of the board members attending remotely, especially at the committee level. That would be my concern. I would leave it to your corporation counsel to weigh the importance of my concern there. Did I lose you?
Okay.
Hi, Andy.
Well, I thought somebody got mad at me and because I was attending remotely.
There's all those people behind you.
Did everybody understand my comments or were you able to hear my comments?
Which one?
I was asking if my only concern with excusing board members from meetings during a closed session causes problems with quorum, especially at the committee level.
What's Wisconsin County's, what's their position, what's his position on it, I guess?
But you can't take action in closed session. But you couldn't expect someone who's not in closed session to be able to vote on it. No, okay.
Well, yeah, that's the concern is that oftentimes you come out of closed session and take official action based upon the discussion in closed. And so I would be concerned about quorum. And so I think that a compromise position would be that and shall be excused from any closed session part of a meeting unless provided the opportunity to remain by the board chair or committee chair.
Mr. Wendell wants to speak.
Andy, just one question. How does that jive with 19.89?
If we have a board rule on the books, we have the ability to excuse somebody.
Go on.
All right, have we figured that one out?
Yeah.
We move on then.
One moment, I'm taking my notes.
Right faster.
Marty's in a hurry.
Mr. Chairman, are we in agreement on this issue?
Yes. I believe we are.
Okay. I don't have any other big points to address within the board rules. So I would turn it back to you, Mr. Chair, to see if there are other points that any member of the board wants to discuss before we move on to.
Well, I'm going to go back through this document then and cover the changes that we recommended.
Is this one that we happen to just notice here on page 20 about the public comment? That there has to be a sign-in sheet. We definitely now have a lot of people online listening to our meetings, and we encourage that because we want to be more open. And they are the ones that often have the public comment. So I don't know if we need a sign-in sheet. They should state their name and then follow all these other rules. Does that make sense?
Isn't that what the chat's for?
My recommendation is.
The chat.
Put it in the chat.
If they know how to do that.
Why don't I just say must provide their name and address prior to beginning comments?
But if they're online, how do they do that?
Or they can put it in the chat.
Yeah,
They either put it in chat or they can do it verbally.
say it out loud.
Get a record of it.
I think they ought to be here myself.
I've had it.
That's why we're trying to be more open.
I know. Andy,
Yes.
are you prepared to quickly just take us through the things that we changed or finalized tonight in this document?
Yes. And so the things that we changed tonight, I'll read you the language in 2.05A first. That's on page 6. And I'm going to start from the beginning. The board hereby establishes the Committee on Committees, which shall convene within 1 week following each organizational meeting for purposes of nominating members to standing committees. The Committee on Committees shall be comprised of 7 members consisting of the board chair, board vice chair, and 5 at-large supervisors elected by the county board at the organizational meeting. Such election shall occur by ballot, with the 5 members receiving the most votes on the ballot being elected. The board chair shall serve as chair of the Committee on Committees, and the rest stayed the same.
All righty.
The next change I had was in remote communication that we just discussed, remote attendance at meetings. I'll start from the beginning again. Remote attendance at meetings in 4.03a. Board members shall make every attempt to attend county board and committee meetings in person. A board member authorized under these board rules to attend a meeting by remote communication, parentheses, telephonic or video conference technology, end of parentheses, shall be considered present for a meeting with full rights to participate and vote. A board member may attend no more than 6 regularly scheduled county board meetings in any calendar year without the approval of the board chair in his or her sole discretion. There is no limitation on the number of committee meetings that a board member may attend by remote communication. Any board member attending a board or committee meeting remotely shall keep the camera on for the entirety of their attendance if attending by video, and shall be excused from any closed session part of a meeting unless granted permission to remain in the meeting by the board chair or committee chair.
Okay, that's the way I recall it.
Sounds good.
All right.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir, Mr. Reich.
6 in a calendar year. That's January 1st to December 31st. It should be from our organizational meeting to organizational meeting.
Should be in a board year, right?
Yes, not a calendar year, a board year.
Can we make that change, Andy?
We can just understand that the organizational meeting is a biennial event. So do we want to say from April 1 to March 31 of the following year?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, may I ask one more question?
You may.
Mr. Phillips referenced earlier that the removal of a county board member and the fact that it takes, I think he said, a 2/3 majority vote. I don't see that specified in here under the section of removal. Is it per statute? Like, do we have to have it specified or do we just go by statute?
There's no reason.
We would just, right, we would go by statute.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Next change, or is that it?
That's it.
Mr. Chair. Back on page 3, 201A, number 4, they should change that word from appoint to elect.
Right.
That's what you just read.
No, he read the other one. He didn't read this.
They will.
No, I already made that change. Yes, that's a good point. Correct. I made it so it elects the 5 at-large members of the committee on committees.
Okay.
I beat you back. Okay, we got it.
The only other thing I would point out is that there are 2 provisions highlighted within these board rules. Those fall under 3.01C and 3.02B. They speak to the automatic membership on committees for the board chair and board vice chair. With the restructure of the committees that I put together for Appendix A tonight, that may change. And so I did not make any changes to that, but we may need to make changes on that if the board adopts the Appendix A restructuring of the committees.
Whereabouts is that?
Page
It's
14.
on pages 14 and 15.
That makes sense.
Right.
And so, Mr. Chair, I think that it would be appropriate if the board is ready to take action to adopt the board rule as presented and amended this evening, and directing council, your county clerk, your administrator, and corporation counsel to review and ensure that the board rules are all grammatically, section-wise, reference-wise, table of contents-wise correct.
Yeah. I'll entertain a motion.
So
Mr. Cosgrove, seconded by Mr. C.
May I ask a question?
Yeah. Discussion.
Discussion.
I'm just wondering, and I know that probably a great majority doesn't agree with me on this. But I keep thinking, what's the hurry? Why are we in such a rush to do all this? make all these changes when there have been things that have worked. And I thought that when I started on this board 2 years ago, I knew nothing. And I was told at the time that there was this big change and what didn't work, we were gonna tweak on working and making it better. And I feel like we're throwing out the baby with the bathwater on this and just changing everything. And what is the hurry? Why do we have to, I mean, I realize you wanna do this for the organizational meeting. But maybe you should think about it a little bit and see what isn't working and what will work, what has been working.
Anyone else want to comment? Mr. Carroll?
On 406B, I just wonder if we can consider softening wording there a little, or else confirm that we're all gonna follow that. Rule.
406B. Debate you're talking about?
In 406B, that's the time limit on debate. Is that what we're talking about?
Yes, yeah.
That's in Robert's rules. If you can certainly soften that, if that's what you want. It's entirely up to this board.
I think that's a good rule.
What does Robert's rules allow debate for someone who makes a motion and speaks in favor of, in terms of time?
Mr. Chair.
I don't know.
Mr. Chair.
Thought I read 10 minutes.
Yes, Mr. Carroll.
My point is, it says each person only allowed to talk twice. And we're pretty informal here, which I prefer, but right now, this rule doesn't say we can do that.
Go ahead and read the rule, please.
Debate. Each board member shall be entitled to speak twice for a total of not to exceed 10 minutes on any matter pending before the board and open for discussion. Any member may move to limit or extend the floor time of any speaker, and such motion shall not be debatable. Discussion and comment should be directed to the board chair and not to any individual board member, county staff, or member of the public. All board member comments shall be germane to the business currently pending before the board.
Thank you.
So you can extend your own.
Andy, do you have any comments on that?
We built in a provision allowing for extension of those limits. I think it's good to have limits in there, and having a provision to extend those, I think, provides relief in the event that somebody needs to speak more than twice or needs to go more than 10 minutes.
Well, we routinely break that rule, and but so far hasn't resulted in fisticuffs. So we've lost Andy.
Anybody.
Is it on our end? Are we cutting out completely or what?
I don't know.
Well, when you cut out, I still can see the others that are online, so I don't know if that makes a difference.
We can hear him.
Oh,
That's
You're good.
Andy, can you hear us?
I can, yes.
Well, then we can go ahead. Go ahead.
So, Mr. Chair, I have a question, Mr. Phillip.
Yes.
On this section, it's specifically labeled debate. Are there any in Robert's rules or in the way it should go, is there any specifications as to what qualifies as a debate? For example, tonight, as Mr. Carroll said, we are operating more informally. I wouldn't really call this a debate so much as a discussion of something that's before us. So is there differences in that? Is that specific?
No, Robert's rules does not recognize a difference. Everything that we're doing tonight is debating. It is, but understand too that we're operating as the committee of the whole, and at least for committee proceedings, that there is recognition of small board rules within Robert's rules where these types of limitations do not apply. That's in section 4.06E.
We are technically right now in a committee meeting. The committee just happens to encompass the entirety of the county board. The rules, the parliamentary rules for a small board or committee meeting are different than for the full board. And this limitation would not apply in committee. So if there were an issue where we would want more debate, or if we expected there to be more conversation, that might be properly brought before a committee of the whole rather than as the normal course of business in a full board meeting.
Thank you.
Mr. Rennies first.
This gives the board chair a tool to use if debate is going on and on and on.
Yes.
If he decides to end it, then in here, you still have the option of overruling him by saying, I want to extend the time. But we've got to give, whether it's Marty or the next board chair, or whoever, they've got to have some tools to work with to run an effective, efficient meeting.
Great. Mr. Chair, can I just respond to that? I just want to say that I agree. And I just wanted to clarify the difference between what we're doing here tonight and a regular board meeting.
Linda, I think that Bob Frank was in chat possibly.
Thank you. So the comment I see here, reading it, any member may move to limit or extend the floor time of any speaker, and such motion is not be debatable. So any member could be the speaker, they can extend their own time.
Correct.
So there's really not a limit.
They still have to vote on it.
Yes, but yeah, but still, they can ask to extend their own time if they feel it.
That would be called a filibuster.
There we go. I'm in favor of this. I understand the reason behind it. It's flexible enough.
Linda?
Yeah, I'm not against that. I don't understand what you said, that this, I thought this was an official county board meeting and this is not. I mean, how do we know which
First
is
meeting as a committee of the whole.
So notice, the public notice should properly say that the county board is meeting as a committee of the whole versus the county board will hold its regularly scheduled meeting.
And is that what it says?
That may be a process issue on our end then. It also has not, I can't remember the last time we met as a committee of the whole other than through this process. So if this is something that the board contemplates doing more frequently, we'll certainly all work with Derek and we'll make sure that those are properly agended.
So we have, yes, Mr. Mannion.
10 minutes, you can say an awful lot.
Some people can.
I can only imagine our meetings if everybody took 10 minutes at a time.
Absolutely. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to approve this. Now we've had discussion. It's been first and seconded. So I guess a vote would be in order at this time. And so I'm going to call that vote. And that's with the proviso that after we do the committee structure, whether we redo it or don't redo it, we're going to have to come back and tweak this because we make reference to a couple of committees which may not exist or may exist for the board chair and the vice chair. Okay? So are you ready to vote?
Chairman, this motion does not approve the change in committee structure.
No, this is the board rules.
Just the board rules.
We'll take up committee structure next.
And I just want to say that, you know, the committee changes is a drastic change, but this is cleaning up a lot of our things we've been doing incorrectly. So I think this is a cleanup, not a change. Sure, I mean,
Okay. All right, go with that.
Yeah.
So all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed. Okay, Andy, you smooth talker.
Wow. I will work with your corporation counsel, your clerk, and your administrator to get this in final form for everybody.
Yes, sir. Now, can we take up committees?
Yes, and looking at the Appendix A that was distributed, I realized this afternoon. So you haven't had a lot of time to review. Let me tell you what my charge, I believe my charge was as it relates to looking at your committee structure currently. To try to simplify and streamline both from a function standpoint and a governance standpoint how our committees operate. And what I mean by that is that we have currently a whole long list of committees without clear lines of authority that go from that committee to the county board. And we have the intersection of particular requirements contained within statute that you superimpose on that committee structure, and it creates confusion. And from my perspective, as somebody who works for the Counties Association and many counties around the state, the last thing I want to see is confusion, because that just leads to time that could be spent on important county business being spent instead on determining who gets to make what decisions when and where. And so what you will see here is that I have first divided the committee structure into 3 different types of committees. We have the standing committees of the county board, we have other boards and commissions, and then we have ad hoc committees. The easiest way to describe it in terms of function is that the standing committees serve as the real work committees, so to speak, in making policy recommendations to the board and performing oversight responsibility as it relates to the various functions and departments within county government. Sometimes those committees and some of their functions are mandated by statute, sometimes they are not. When we get to other boards and commissions, they come about as a result of either a requirement under statute that you have a particular board or commission, or as is common in Richland County and many other counties, we have Richland County being a part of some other regional or other board or commissioner committee that is comprised of simply more than Richland County government. For example, with the Richland Center Library Board, other entities are involved. The City County Committee, obviously involving Richland Center. So there are other entities involved. And so those are the 2 primary reasons that we have other boards and commissions. And then third, on the last page, page 6, we've got ad hoc committees. Those committees arise because of a specific purpose, and they arise from time to time. They are not regular features, so to speak, of county board governance. And so we have them identified as ad hoc committees. And so if we go back up to the standing committees, again, in an effort to streamline this, and in an effort to clearly delineate responsibilities, we have 5 basic committees. We have the Executive and Finance Committee that's not mandated by statute. We have the Community and Health Services Committee, which is in certain elements required by statute. We have the Natural Resources Committee, which is again subject to certain statutory requirements. We have the Public Works Committee. Again, there are statutory requirements. And then we have the Public Safety Committee, which is subject to statutory requirements. You'll note that under Roman numeral 1 sub B as in boy, we have the Pine Valley Committee. I understood following our discussions that there was a strong preference to maintain some independence by the Pine Valley Committee. And so I created that committee as, and I don't like the word subcommittee because that suggests that it has to be certain members of the particular parent committee. So I called it the Pine Valley Committee, but I put it under Community and Health Services, understanding that it is going to have a role in the Community and Health Services Committee's normal operations, so to speak. But that committee exists separate from the Community and Health Services Committee and has responsibility for your Pine Valley Center. The other item I will note, because I know this was discussed before at our last get together, and that was under Roman 2 sub A, the Veteran Service Commission. We are required by statute to have a Veteran Service Commission. You'll see there that the Veteran Service Commission exists independent of any standing committee of the county board. On personnel and financial issues, that Veteran Service Commission reports to the Executive and Finance Committee. But that Veteran Service Commission makes an independent report to the county board on how things are operating by whether it be the county veteran service officer or that office in general, makes a quarterly report directly to the county board. And so from an overview standpoint, you will see that I have listed out the way and manner of appointments and the composition of the committees. I have identified the statutes that we need to comply with as it relates to composition of those committees. Those statutes also provide function for the committees. In other words, Community and Health Services operates as the Board of Health, also operates as the Human Services Board. There are two particular statutes that impact what it is this committee has to do. For health, it's 25103, for human services, 4623. And so I reference those statutes, and those statutes provide certain requirements in terms of the function of the committee. That said, I think that there are a lot of functions that are within your current committee structure document that we would add to this Appendix A document. In other words, we would bring over from existing committee structure a lot of the responsibilities that you currently have within your committee structure document and place them in the appropriate place on this Appendix A. I did not do that here yet because I was trying to simplify from a visual standpoint your view of this new committee restructure, so to speak, to see if it made sense. From the standpoint of, I guess, my personal experience with other counties, what I like to see in terms of governance clarity, I think that what you have with this revision is a lot cleaner, again, in terms of authority, in terms of function, in terms of reporting. But ultimately, like I began our discussion a month ago, is that these are your board rules, and you need to determine how you best operate and govern yourselves. So I would leave it to you as to how we want to comprise this committee structure. Again, if our goal is to provide clear lines of authority, clean governance, so to speak, and clarity, I think that the board ought to consider something like what we have in front of us tonight with Appendix A. So perhaps I'll stop talking now and turn it back to you, Mr. Chair, for comment, when I'm sure there's going to be a lot of comment.
Okay, you have Appendix A in front of you. You don't have a copy. Any comments? No. Mark?
First of all, I can't imagine anybody would want to be on the HHS committee next time with the tremendous amount of stuff that's put onto them. My feeling is, I hate the idea of Pine Valley being a subcommittee, and I know he said he doesn't like the word, but that's what's in here. Pine Valley was built by this board to honor the citizens of Richland County by giving them a place to live, a place to meet other people, a place to heal before returning home. And it also gives a lot of money to this county every year. It's a shining star right now among this county, since we have so many other things going wrong, like the campus. By putting Pine Valley under the auspices of HHS, to me, is comparable to putting UW Richland under UW Platteville, and we know what happened there. Pine Valley deserves and must be a standalone committee. It's important, and I'm not saying that other committees aren't important, but I'm saying that putting Pine Valley should be its own committee responsible to the county board. Right now, if you go to, if it's under HHS, it has to make a decision, go to HHS, tell them that, HHS has to take it to finance, finance has to take it to the board. It's become more cumbersome, things aren't going to get done, and I just cannot believe that we would do that to them.
Okay, anyone want to respond to Barb? Make a comment? Don? Mr. C.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I won't take 10 minutes.
Please.
I agree with Barb's comments. Pine Valley, what Gary used to call an enterprise entity of the county board. The point was made that, you know, they have the Pine Valley operates on a July to June to July fiscal year, but it reports to the county board. Its auditor report to the county board is based upon the calendar year, and it has probably the most transparent accounting system of any healthcare system I have seen. and certainly much better than most of our departments, and certainly much more understandable than our S-400 reports. There has been a tradition of county board control and involvement in the Pine Valley enterprise. There has always been the chairman of the county board and or the vice chair have served on that committee throughout the years that I've been there. And they have been an elected body, elected by the board, which again is indicative of the board's control. The financial production of the Pine Valley, all of its proceeds land in the general fund of the county. The county owns the property and the farmland around it. It is county government property, but it also requires the important citizen oversight because of its responsibility to the patients throughout the county that we serve and whom we have served for 140 years. Whether you call it a committee or a board of trustees, I think is not a big issue. But the accounting system as it exists is extremely transparent. And the books are closed each year by an auditor, by the county's auditor, who states that is one of the best run public health care systems in the state of Wisconsin. So I am opposed to making drastic management changes, oversight changes to Pine Valley. It's produced very well for the county. It's its greatest asset. It has a different accounting system, yes, a profit loss system, a financial statement produced in accordance with standard accounting principles.
Okay, Don, I'm gonna
Thank you.
ask you to sum it up and call in Richard McKee.
Well, I'm sure all of you know where I sit. Pine Valley is near and dear to my heart because I've been on Pine Valley's board of trustees. Not before the construction started, but well, in the middle.
And that was 7 years ago, was that? 7 years.
Anyway, it's near and dear to my heart.
Yeah.
I personally agree with Don, that it should be a standalone committee, but I don't. Looking around the room here, I don't think that's going to happen. And I have a lot of questions regarding the function of Pine Valley, whether you call it a committee or trustee.
Mr. Rennish, you currently serve on the Pine Valley Committee. What do you think?
Well, I serve on HHS too, so I don't understand the concern because Pine Valley, if I was on Pine Valley and future community health services, I would still be attending 2 meetings every month. Pine Valley will be standalone. The only difference is they'll report to Children and Health Services, which then would go to the county board. There's actually one more check before it gets to the county board. So if you really want to look at it, you're doubling down your oversight the way we're doing it this way. You've got Pine Valley that's standalone, they'll meet alone, they'll do the same things. But instead of going right directly to the county board, it will go to Children and Health Services.
Yeah. Anyone else comment? Linda?
I've never been on that board, but I was on here when I thought we talk about policy. The Pine Valley, if they didn't have a good trustee or committee at that point, I don't care either which one. it wouldn't have been built in the green manner that it is and to be the exceptional institution that it is now. That was board people making that decision, board people convincing other board members. They were actively making that one of the high-quality buildings in this whole county. And to take this now and make a bureaucratic thing where now you have your committee meeting, then everybody, if they have something important, would all have to attend HHS to make sure that HHS all learns about all the details. It seems like it's just a bureaucratic step. So why bother with it? Why don't they just make it a separate committee? And the board will have a lot of policy with this. It's one of our biggest debts, one of our biggest moneymakers. It's a huge responsibility of this board.
Thank you. Ken?
I think everybody's missing the point. It's just the opposite of what Linda said. You're actually getting more county board members involved in Pine Valley by doing it this way, because it's going to go through 2 committees now. You're actually involving more board members in the operation of Pine Valley before it gets to the county board.
I would be curious if there are any members from Pine Valley. I see a lot of people here, if there's any comments that they would have. I know we've had the public comment section, but if there's any comments, I'd like to hear what that.
I just saw the appendix. Sorry.
But I will allow.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I appreciate everyone's comments and discussion. We rely so heavily on the trustee board, then it goes to finance and then county board. So I have a hard time understanding why there'd be another layer of oversight, and will that delay keeping things moving? Because right after our trustees meet, the checks go out, we get our vendors paid, which they have to wait long enough as it is with county government. It takes a while. So I don't understand what the purpose would be to explain, bring it all to the Health and Human Service Board. Their meeting, I'm sure, is plenty heavy already. And then to intermingle these meetings, I don't quite understand the extra level of oversight. Like Ken said, there may be duplicate board members on both committees.
Right, Administrator Hess would like.
I think there's some misconception. They will not then have to go through the finance because of the way that we are going to be changing the policy, so that if something is regularly budgeted for, it will go to HHS and then to board. So rather than going to finance and then to board, it will just go to HHS and then to the board.
How about our general board meeting? Most of the time, we don't have anything to bring to the county or to bring to the finance. But what about our general, monthly board meetings where we're looking at the vouchers, we're looking at all the financials, would that then go to Health and Human Services and they look at it again?
No, that's your committee. It's not going to require action anymore. That's if we pass the new policy, the way that it's intended, or at least what I'm gathering of the consensus of this board is that anything that is budgeted for does not then require approval at every turn because it's already budgeted. So it would still go in front of your committee for review, for asking questions, but it wouldn't need approval every single month because it's already been approved in the budget process.
But that's what we do now, I guess I'm just thinking of like our invoices and a lot of it is reporting so they can see what's happened all month.
Correct, but you require action now. You will not require
Just by
action.
the trustees. Trustees approve it and then it's done.
Correct, and you don't require that any further. You will not require that to go on. That will go in front of your board just as it would now. And then if, the HHS committee or the full county board wants a quarterly report or an annual report, fine. But other than that, unless you have an action item that is required to go through all the way to the county board, just as it is now, there's nothing else to be done.
Where does that state that? What
Where
you
does it
just said,
state what?
no longer is going to go through, where does it state?
That's
that?
why your liaison committee, that's what that is clarifying. That this committee, if it requires something to go further, your liaison committee is, and here, the liaison committee for Pine Valley is HHS, not finance and personnel, but HHS.
Well, why?
Because it makes more sense, because it's health and community services. So we're taking all of the health and community services and putting them under one umbrella.
But they're so
Pine
big.
Valley is health.
They're huge. If you look at the pie of our county, it's their biggest pie.
it is their biggest pie, but Pine
Why-
Valley Committee
why
is
would
still
we dilute it?
standalone.
Why
It's
would you
still
dilute it?
standalone. Because we require some sort of oversight. That's why we're not, Pine Valley Board of Trustees, if you look at the statute as it sits right now, we do not function as a true Board of Trustees. We function as a committee. And it is not, the way that this has been recommended to us is that it does not rise to the level of a standing committee. And so that's where, and Andy, weigh in any time that you feel like you need to.
No, you're doing great. You're doing great. And I think that your last point is important in that the way that Pine Valley is currently structured is under the Board of Trustees model, which frankly is antiquated. It goes back, gosh, I want to say 70 or 80 years in terms of that statute. And the way it operates now is really as a committee. And so I think that putting the committee label on Pine Valley, setting aside a moment whether it's a standalone committee or a subcommittee of community and health services, I think that has to happen in order for the current way that we operate in Richland County to be consistent with statutory requirements. So I think that has to happen. In terms of Pine Valley and its role within county government and governance as it relates to the status of the committee as either being standalone or a subcommittee of community and health services. I mean, to me, what I have seen in other counties is that there has to be a lot of discussion, communication, information sharing between the county nursing home and the HHS function within county government. And so that's why I see a lot of counties having that tight relationship between the county nursing home and HHS, which in this case it would be community and health services, which is why, again, and again, this is subject to the debate, but that's why I put it as its own committee, but it is basically a subcommittee of community and health services. The reason I didn't say it's an outright subcommittee in its title is because I don't think it has to be comprised only of members of the Community and Health Services Committee. I think it can be a standalone committee, but I think there would be benefit to having a solid relationship between that Pine Valley Committee and the Community and Health Services Committee.
Hands, Barb.
Thanks. Ken said he thought because of the double coverage, there would be more oversight. And I see just the opposite, that it becomes less important to the HHS committee because they've got 400 other things on their agenda.
May I speak to that?
Yes.
So I'm currently chairing the HHS committee, and I will say over the last 2 years, since we restructured from the last time, and since we've moved further into complying, well, maybe complying is the wrong word, into operating as a county administrator run county, our committee meetings have become shorter because we have cut out a lot of the things that historically we were doing that no longer fall under our purview. They no longer need to. So currently, our committee meetings are 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour max generally, unless we have something big on the horizon like budget or something that might be a bit more involved. But generally, they're fairly short meetings. And to your earlier point about this looking like a large amount of oversight or a large amount of things under community and health services, there's very little here that's added that wasn't already a part of our oversight. So this is essentially what we were doing already with the addition of the Pine Valley Committee, which, as was stated, doesn't necessarily need to report to our committee unless, I mean, it would be similar to reporting to finance and personnel. And I'm not going to speak on that. I just want to speak from my perspective as a board chair of the HHS. We have time to learn what we need to learn. In fact, the way it's been moving, we have more time to learn more about the various departments in health and human services, to have more reports, to gain broader knowledge, because we're not taking up our time with minutia of micromanaging or oversight things that we don't need to be. So that's just my perspective.
But if we don't have to report to you, to HHS, unless something big comes up, why do we have to report at all? I mean, it's.
Well, and I don't need to speak on that. I'll let them respond, but I just wanted to share.
You're addressing that to you. I should be addressing on this way.
Mr. Chairman.
Pine Valley is just too important.
I'm going with Manny next.
I've heard a lot of legal reasons and positive reasons why we should do this. I've not heard a single reason why we shouldn't. What would be wrong if we do what they're suggesting here, when we're paying an expert $300 an hour? Find legal reasons to do what's in these documents. What do we have to lose by doing this? I don't see anything.
Donald C.
Well, the Pine Valley Management and Administration has developed, and the staff has developed a very, very solid institutionalized relationship with the community. And there's a massive number of people in the community who are directly and indirectly involved in Pine Valley. And I think it would behoove this board to consider some sort of a public hearing before you change the structure of that institution. I presently, Pine Valley does report to the board. It reports major financial decisions. It brings them to the county board, to the Finance and Personnel Committee. It brings its personnel policy issues to the county board for approval, generally through the Personnel and Finance Committee. I don't see a purpose in turning something upside down that has worked well and is working well, as is evident to most people who have been around on this board. There is a requirement to review the financial statements monthly. That is a requirement by the state and by the auditor. He tells us that, and so it's not, we're not spinning our wheels reviewing financial statements.
Dave Turk.
Mr. Chair, I take issue with the characterization this is turning things upside down or fundamentally altering the institution. Pine Valley has an administrator who's a department head. They will still have an administrator who's a department head. We're talking about committee structure of this board and where that particular piece fits in our structure. And that's the discussion we're having here tonight.
Richard.
Okay, I got some questions. Byron Cantor's right, the board will function as it does. Correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we will provide oversight. Correct? Okay. But if there's something, it will go to Health and Human Services.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, please.
If there's something unusual, depending on what that is, it should really be coming through the county administrator and then be addressed to the committee when appropriate, or if appropriate. And that's where, it depends on what it is.
Okay, whatever it is, then Health and Human Services does not go through the executive committee, it will go directly to the county
Correct.
board.
That is why we are streamlining
That's really
things.
what we have now.
Right.
Choose
It's
to go
just
to-
moving it from one committee to a different committee. That's really all. That's really all that this is changing.
So
That's,
we don't have now two committees we have to go.
no,
Linda.
Minor thing. Why don't you reverse it? Why doesn't HHS go to Pine Valley? Because Pine Valley's got the bigger budget and the bigger debt. Why are you doing it this way? What's the difference? You said they're all public health. No? Close.
We're not playing horseshoes.
Yeah,
It's our decision.
I see nothing wrong with the proposed committee structure. They can streamline things and makes things.
Mr. Chair,
We'll get more participation, yes.
separate from the discussion on Pine Valley, you're looking at the whole proposed overall structure. 2 years ago, we took steps in this direction. And to me, this isn't a rush. This is next step.
Right.
This is us continuing what we started. I think we should approve this. I think we should, a year from now, sit back down and look at it and see how it's working. We kind of got tangled up in some other things like campus closing and stuff like that this year and didn't really start looking at this.
Always some little things.
Yeah, little things like that, right? But we should have a hard provision in it. Yeah, a year from now, we're gonna sit down and take a look at this again and see if it's working the way we thought it was gonna work. And so to me, again, this is just next steps. This isn't, throwing anything out.
I'd like to have the provision because we asked last time to have it and we never got that done. We asked repeatedly. Okay, I just have some questions about some other committees. Can we do that? Okay, I'm on a committee. I'm meeting tomorrow. Richard's there too. The Richland County Housing Authority. And it says Housing Authority on here. So there's only been 2 of us appointed to that. We're never to get a per diem. And I want to know if that on C is the same committee I'm attending, or if that committee's on here. It's a little confusing to me.
I give it per diem for.
You're not supposed to, they said.
Oh, that's what I was.
Richard's been collecting for years.
I haven't
That's what I
done
can't
it.
get.
Derek Kalish, you have a comment on that?
No, I don't.
You don't?
I mean, is that the same committee? And
I
it's
think-
only 2 of us are on there. So this says 3. I just want to make sure we're, it's the same thing.
I think so, Linda. I don't know.
Okay. Okay.
I guess I can answer. Sure.
Okay, well, I'm going tomorrow.
That could be a table.
And we thank you for your.
Okay. And I have one more thing that you probably are just going to knock me out of the room with.
Yeah.
I sent an email to Andy Phillips through. This is something that I feel strongly and have for a long time, that I'd like to have another committee. Now, don't fall over, okay? I want a legislative liaison committee. I think now Candace is doing that. And I think that's good. I think that the board, talking about policy, that she should have a committee she works with on that. And there's a lot of things happening. I mean, we waited 10 years for the WCA to try to get our money out of the legislature. We're an arm of the legislature. We should be communicating with them better than what we're doing now. And I like the WCA, but they took 10 years to get our money that we really needed to have. And now we're doing better. That was too long. We also have the youth placement. We also have, right now, we had the ARPA funds. They made decisions about how we could use the ARPA funds. Maybe we wanted to explain to them, the county. We currently have an auditorium. They're trying to get to have lifeguards be differently. It's going through the foundation rather than the county going to the legislature trying to get that done. We're spending all that money on the auditorium and it's not open. It's just sitting there.
What she's talking about is it's difficult to have lifeguards in
Yeah.
an auditorium
Yeah,
because of the requirement that when us old guys are there, they're gonna have a lifeguard.
yeah, and we need to get the legislature to change some of those rules. I'm sure public safety might, some of those things with that. I think there's a lot of things that
Well,
would enhance.
Linda, on understanding committees, it talks about the
Where?
executive and finance committee responsible for review of determining appropriate committee. Let's see, or I lost it.
Responsible for review of official county positions on state and federal legislative and regulatory.
Yeah, but are you ever doing that? I'm
Well,
serious.
this is no committee.
Okay.
This is what we're gonna supposed to be.
Executive.
This is giving us
Okay,
a marching order.
gonna do it because
Yeah.
I haven't seen it done.
You're right. You're right, but. Yes, sir. Mr. McGuire. You haven't
Yeah.
talked tonight, so.
No.
You
I
have
don't
10
talk
minutes.
when
You
I-
have 10 minutes.
I don't sit on this committee, so I have limited information here, but for those that don't sit on this committee and maybe those that don't quite understand why this is a problem, I have a 2-part question. And is number 1, could this be, is there something that happened at some point that caused this to be put under scrutiny? And the other thing, the question is there something here that is going to require this, or is this something that Dave said we started 2 years ago? If everybody could understand what that means to all of us here, it might be easier for those that don't quite understand why this is being done.
Okay, Dave, I'll let you respond to that.
When we brought in a county administrator, that fundamentally alters the way we operate as a county. And we took steps 2 years ago to try to align ourselves better with how an administrator county government functions. There was a lot of debate like this 2 years ago. We went back and forth about certain things. Some steps we took in the direction, but we didn't go all the way there. And so we shuffled our alignment a little bit. We tried a different process for appointing committees, for electing our chair and vice chair. And now we're looking at that experience, and there was feedback that, that wasn't quite what we were going for. And so we have again looked with the new administrator now and different council and different input now, soliciting input from WCA, and Andy is the lawyer too, to help us figure out, okay, so this is what we tried 2 years ago. How far did we get? Well, there are still some things in our rules that weren't right. We had to fix those. And we look at our committee structure and say, well, we tried to slim it down. It got a little smaller, but it didn't really get slim. It didn't get as efficient as we had hoped. So what does the next iteration of that look like? And so there's been work going on trying to figure that out. This is a model we did talk a little bit about 2 years ago, this kind of 5 committee structure, but we didn't get that far. And so now we're taking the next step in that direction to try to get it aligned as best we can in a way that can work efficiently. Again, with the thought that, yes, this is different than what we're doing now. And a year from now, let's look back and see how this worked out. Was this really what we intended it to be or not? Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Sure.
And I'll add further to that if I, 1 second. We're more involved now with the counties association. We're sending more people to those meetings. Steve has gone, I have gone.
Yeah, just a minor thing.
We'll open it up.
Controversial. But I noticed the Southwest Wisconsin Library System asks for 2 members from our board to be on that. That seems too much to me. Bob, what do you think?
I would think that 1 would be sufficient.
Yeah.
For that meeting that I've gone to, with that, decision making process.
Mr. McKee,
I have a suggestion.
is it gonna be nice?
I don't see where child support.
Child support?
Community and health services.
Community.
Top of the second page under community health and.
My question is, why is that not on public safety? Because it deals with court-ordered child support.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So if that's the premise for the argument, then why would mental commitments or the guardianships be under, why wouldn't they be under public safety either? Guardianships.
Institutional care.
51s, 54s, 55s in my.
Well, it's court ordered.
But it's court ordered. So a court involvement does not necessarily mean it serves a public safety function.
Okay. But I think you've identified a county. A county has got fingers everywhere and everything comes together eventually. Mr. Reddish?
I understand, mine's gonna be on the Veteran Service Commission. I understand that it's 3 members statutorily. Is there any way, Andy, that we can have something wording like if available? In other words, if there's a veteran on the county board, could we, on those 3 members, could we say 1 has to be a county board member?
Good idea.
No?
Andy?
I mean, I think we could, as long as, again, that member of the county board is a veteran. And so, I mean, for example, you'll see that with the Joint Ambulance Committee on sub 2F, 2 members of the county board appointed by the administrator. So, I mean, we could say that it's 3 members appointed by the administrator, and if at least one of which should be a county board member, assuming they meet the appropriate qualifications or something to that effect. We could absolutely do that.
I like the hands-on liaison point of it.
Yeah.
I think it's a great idea.
Anyone else here? Comments? Don, you wanted to go again, I think.
Well, I just want to say that this issue with Pine Valley concerns me very much. I have not heard that there are real problems that need to be solved. I think we're a problem to find a solution to, or looking for a solution to a problem that does not exist. I don't if something is not broken, why fix it? If there are problems, please tell us what those problems are that need to be corrected.
Mr.
First, wonderful summary of organization.
Mr. Cooey.
Just a clarification on the Aging Unit Advisory Committee. At least 2 members shall be older individuals. Well, the older every year, I don't even what the level of old you're looking for.
Over the age of 60.
Well, can we
Yeah.
put that in there?
The statute states over the age of 60.
That's all.
I didn't want to offend anybody. I consider myself older, so just for the record.
I'm not old, so I don't know. That's all.
You are Ingrid Glassman.
This is a different subject a little bit. I'm just wondering if we do pass this restructuring, I remember there being some talk about having a certain week or a certain specific time when all of these committees meet. Are we still at this point allowing it to be per committee as far as when they meet, or would we also be considering?
We came up with a timetable.
You did, okay.
Mr. Chair, if I could very briefly, the board rules specify that the committees, when they first get together after the organizational meeting, establish a calendar for regular meetings with due consideration of the meeting calendar for other committees and the desire to get things done before the county board meeting.
So, may I know?
Yes.
Okay. So a couple of things. First of all, one of the things, since I have been employed by this county, we've made a number of changes. And one of the things that I have said each time we make a change is, if it doesn't work, we can always go back. If it doesn't work, we can always tweak it. We can always make changes. So just because we're deciding to change some of this now does not mean it will stay this way forever. Maybe we try it and we're like, that was a bad idea. Okay, so in a year, when we start reviewing this, we write those things down and remember them, because a lot of these suggestions, a lot of the feedback that Derek and I gave to Andy was based on feedback we received from all of you. Because again, these are not our committees, these are your committees. And so, had I started prior to July, we probably would have started this much earlier in the process. But since I didn't even know my head from my hiney, for lack of a better word, for a couple of months, that wasn't possible. So now, yes, I agree. Next year, at this time, we should start this review and take our time going through this process. I think that is much more ideal than trying to do it in 2.5 months, because it has been a large burden and it's a lot of information. Wholly agree with that. And then as far as the meeting structure, so part of the idea of getting to this 5 standing committee schedule is to ensure that everything is being done prior to the board, so that we can get it passed within the same month that action is needing to be taken. So that it's not going through one committee, then the next committee, and then it misses board, and then it doesn't get on until the next month. Sometimes it's 2 months, depending on how the schedule falls. And so the proposed schedule would look very similar to the schedule now, rather than having it take up all month though. The standing committees would all happen prior to the executive committee meeting, which is the Tuesday prior. So we're proposing that natural resources would be at the same time on the first Monday of every month. On the first Thursday of every month, HHS would stay at the same time. Public Works would then move to that day at 4 p.m. Public safety would remain at 8:30 a.m. on the first Friday. And then the executive committee meeting would be that following Tuesday, and then county board the Tuesday after that. This gives us time, and then if there are subcommittee meetings in there, you then have the ability to schedule those as you see fit in order to ensure that they're getting done prior to county board so that we can take action on your items more quickly. So that is the idea, that is the suggestion that we have at this time. And again, it's merely a suggestion, but it would increase our efficiency and our effectiveness.
Mr. Chairman, I have one quick question.
Yes.
For Mr. Phillips. The Veterans Commission that you talked about, you had three categories. One was ad hoc, one was standing committee, one was boards and commission. Where does the Veterans fall in that group of categories?
Yeah, that would be an other board and commission. If you look at the statute that authorizes and mandates the Veterans Service Commission, it's 45.81 of the statutes. And so that would be similar to other commissions that are required by statute. And so it would fall under the other. However, that said, it's a little different than the other. It's a little different than the other ones in that other list, in that the Veterans Service Commission has a direct quarterly report to the county board, and then it also has the direct report up through the executive committee, or excuse me, Community and Health Services.
Very good. You mentioned that they would meet quarterly. That's 4 times a year rather than 2. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, that's what I have now. It's up to this board as to how often that commission would meet. I have it set up as quarterly, but if you want to make it semi-annually, that's fine too.
It'd be difficult for the commission to give a quarterly report unless they at least met those 4 times a year.
I think that, yes, I think that's very logical. So if we're only going to meet twice a year, then it should be a semi-annual report.
Mayor?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips, I believe that when we designed the quarterly report, that is the VSO giving a quarterly report so that there's additional oversight of the VSO, and the commission would only give a report as needed. So when it met and when it needed to give a report was the
Then we
intent.
need to,
Because
yeah,
there was a request for additional information from the VSO on a more regular basis because there's just a liaison relationship. And that was something that you had requested to make sure that there was more ability for the board to have input. And that's why we did it that way. So
and
if
we can
you
reword
don't
that.
want that, we can remove that and just have the commission report through.
Okay. I think we've debated this or talked about it. And what I'm going to do is ask someone to make a motion to adopt the committee structure as outlined here by Mr. Phillips.
Yes,
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Manning,
wait, we had some changes. Do you want to remove them?
we have changes, yeah, some minor changes, I guess. With the changes as annotated.
Also, when we're voting on it, is it as of April 16th?
Well, we're getting a motion before us. As well. Are you seconding?
No, I'll ask.
Are you seconding?
No.
Okay, motion is before us.
Whatever.
Now, I'll entertain it.
Is this to start April 16th?
Yeah.
Shouldn't that be in the motion?
The new board rule, well, I'll accept that amendment, then whoever made that motion, you will accept the amendment. Start April 16th. Now, what do you think? Do you want to make any amendments here? You want to make an amendment about Pine Valley?
I will.
Does the Human Services have the power to veto anything?
And why is it there?
But I make an amendment. Mr.
Yes.
Chair. I would like to make an amendment to make Pine Valley a standing committee.
A standing committee, then it would report directly to the county board.
Yes.
Okay, do I have a second to that motion? Linda, okay. So I'll call for a vote on the amendment. And that's to make Pine Valley a standing committee, kind of off to the side, reporting directly to the board. Right? Does everyone understand that? All those in favor of that amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed to that amendment signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay, I'm gonna have to have a show of hands. All in favor, raise your hand. Can someone do a count for me? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Everyone have their hands up finally, keep them up because some of you came up late, so everyone have their hand up, please. We're not gonna do roll.
This is for making Pine Valley a standing committee.
I have 8 hands raised.
8 hands raised, okay. Those against making it a standing committee, raise your hand.
Eight. Mr. Chair, can we just do a recall?
We can. All right, we'll call the roll on that. Because we can't count.
Okay.
All right, yes means you want a standing committee. A no means you're against it. Okay?
So Gentis,
Yes.
Turk,
No.
Cosgrove,
No.
Frank,
No.
Severson,
Aye.
Williamson,
No.
Cooley,
Yes.
Fleming, Boyce,
Yes.
McGuire,
No.
Carroll,
Yeah.
Miller, Brewer,
No.
Seep,
Yes.
McKee,
Yes.
Renish,
No.
Luck, Amy,
No.
Gotcho, Glassbrenner.
No.
Okay, I have 9 no's and 7 yeses.
Okay, whatever we call it.
Amendment.
The amendment. All right, do we have any other amendments that we want to talk about? If not, I'm going to call for a vote then. Minor revisions that we talked about will be made. But we're voting on this document on committees. And do you think we need a roll call on this?
Find out.
Let's do it. Let's just start with yay or nay. Mr. Feelish.
All right, so this time I will start with Turk,
Aye.
Cosgrove,
Yes.
Frank,
Yes.
Severson,
No.
Williamson,
Yes.
Cooley,
Yes.
Fleming, Boyce,
No.
McGuire,
Yes.
Carroll,
Yes.
Miller, Brewer,
Yes.
Seep,
No.
McKee,
I abstain.
Renish,
Yes.
Manning,
Aye.
Gotcho, Glassbrenner,
Yes.
and Gentis.
No.
Okay, you have 11 yes and 4 no and 1 abstention.
Okay, so the motion carries. And we are acting, this is a committee of the whole of the county board, so this action is valid. We don't have to take it to the next meeting. All right, where are we on our agenda then? I've removed my screen, I don't know. That's about it. And Mr. Manning,
Mr. Manning.
second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. No roll call.
Doesn't matter.
talking to my partner yesterday. and